Yeah, good afternoon. I actually would thank you, Belinda, again for this amazing film with much love and appreciation for the work for H.R. Giger. You made a documentary that is beyond just a typical biopic of an artist. It is far more. It explains and explores the universe where Giger lived, where he worked, and also his fears and his thoughts. So I wonder, to start with a very basic question, what was the first encounter you had with him, and what did you tell him regarding the film?
So it was quite a coincidence when I met H.R. Giger the first time, because I met his former life partner, Sandra Beretta. You have seen her in the film. By a coincidence, I met her, and she told me that she was the former life partner of H.R. Giger, and immediately I was very interested because I knew his art since my youth. I knew a lot of pictures of him, but I didn't even know that this is H.R. Giger who made them, because many of the pictures are really iconic. So I didn't know the name. I didn't know that he is living in Zurich, near Zurich. So I immediately was really interested. So she told me, if you want to come, I can introduce you to him. And this was quite a special experience when I was the first time at his house. It was overwhelming. I mean, when you enter, when you go over the threshold, you are in a completely other world. You are in a new world somehow. There is a richness of details that is overwhelming. For a filmmaker, that's like a playground. You don't know where to look. There are so many. And of course, then H.R. Giger came, I met him, and he was absolutely not that man that I expected he is. I don't know, I've seen his art and I thought perhaps it is an approachable man, perhaps he is quite distant, cold, reserved, but it was really the opposite. I met a man very kind, very welcoming, so immediately I felt really welcomed at his home.
And in how far did the whole project change in terms of your intention of what you want to show in the film? Were you coming with a clear idea, I want to focus more on his work or more on his personality? And how far did that change during the process of the research?
Well, it was both. As you mentioned earlier, I didn't want to make a typical or a classical biography, because you can read it in the internet. He did many books, so you can read all what you want about him. I wanted to show how he lived. I wanted to show his world, his houses, and all the people around him. I always thought he's like a star, a dark star, in the center of his universe, and all the people around him are like satellites. You have some guards, like Carmen Giger, his wife, his widow now, or Tom Fisher, his assistant, so you have to pass through them if you want to get to H.R. Giger. But he is like a fixed star. He didn't like to go out. He liked to stay at home, at his home. He felt well there.
I wonder a bit in how far he was aware of the fact that this is going to be like another piece of art of his work, actually. So I consider that film as one of his last masterpieces, you can say, because it is his life actually fulfilled with his art pieces that you made as a documentary. Was he aware of the fact that this is going to be also a performance about his life, his works?
I'm absolutely sure he knew exactly what he was doing with his last film. Besides, it was high time. You see a man in this film, he is weak, he is ill, he had a stroke a couple of years ago before we started shooting. So he was completely aware of his condition. It was quite special for our shooting, but he wanted to show that. I'm absolutely sure. It's like a last performance to see him in this condition in his work, in his entourage, in his house, and at the museum. I had several discussions with fans of H.R. Giger. They struggled with this image because they liked him as a master of horror or the master of art, the magician, and suddenly they see a man who is old and weak and ill. But I think it was great that H.R. Giger did that. He showed it. I mean, this is quite provocative in a society which is obsessed with youth and beauty and fitness. So I told the fans, but look at his pictures, look at his paintings. It's all there. You see their death. So he made himself conspicuous in his art.
This house, you told before, for you it was like a treasure, paradise for a filmmaker. But as well, I think for you it was also like a huge challenge to find the right material, I imagine. Can you just, we had the short film program that we screened was also based on your research, because you made it possible that we nowadays have all his short films digitalized or are about to be digitalized. So therefore I also like to thank you in terms of a restorator of all this material, which is actually quite important, because can you explain a bit how you find all this material, not just the paintings, but in particular the film material that you also have chosen for the film?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I found it in the basement of the house. I found there the film reels, the big cartoons with the 16 millimeters at that time. So, I mean, you have seen it. It's quite a mess, or not anymore, what he didn't like so much. So, but I found the material in the basement of this house. The house is very special to me. It's quite like, yeah, you said it. It's like a protagonist in the film. It's like a living organism. It changed all the time due to exhibitions, for example. Paintings are going out, paintings are coming back, so it never was the same. And as you have seen it, it was quite dark, so we had to think about how we can film that. I didn't want to destroy the atmosphere, so I didn't want to put spotlights everywhere. Nevertheless, there was no space. So we couldn't work with a tripod, for example. We couldn't put spotlights. We worked with an easy rig, and we did some travelings through the house. I liked it very much, like a living organism. And yeah, at the very first time I was there, I could think, well, perhaps this is a little bit frightening because of these skulls and these dark paintings, but 5 minutes after, I felt really at home. It was always very warm in this house. He didn't like air condition, H.R. Giger, so it was very warm, and you could hear the heat. I mean, the heating machine, it was like a sort of a pump. So it's like a heartbeat. So we had the impression to be in a living organism.
When Giger was young, he loved or liked so much about the Egypt culture, like the mummy, and also making the MTV with Debbie. We could see that he is so many idea or belief in reborn or spirit, something like that. Is that belief in that the life could be transformed or could be have another choice that could live. But when Giger was old, he said that it's enough. Take one only, no choice. Yeah. So I want to know about more this change or the what was Giger going through from his younger to getting old? What's the change for him to making this my change? Sorry for my poor English. I think you know the question. Thanks so much.
Sorry for mine. I was very surprised when he told me that, and in the interview when he told me, I don't believe at another life. it ends here. I was really surprised. And I don't know, somehow I had the impression he was protecting himself. He knew very well that he had not any more to live so long. So my impression was he was protecting somehow himself. I cannot explain that. I was surprised as you were when you heard it. But, well, that's what he told me.
This question is for both, for this documentary and the short film before at the afternoon. Seems that Giger is not a believer or a follower of utopia. That is an ideal kingdom or ideal country for the future. You can see that the 2069, the short films in something like that, he tried to imagine and describe the future. That seems that everything is perfect, but I think his conclusion is a anti-utopia. Do you think so?
Well, I would follow up on that question and come to your stylistic approach regarding the use of light, because I think this is somehow linked together. It is matched with the comment from the curator saying that he thinks that the work of Giger is not just looking at the dark side. There is always, or extremely at the darkest moment, there is again like this transcendence to the lighter moments or to the lighter phases. And I think you picked this subject somehow also up in your film by using the light. We see sometimes shots where the sunlight is coming in as like as if it is a relief or like something going out. Also in the moment where he goes out of the house and connects with the world. This is a moment where you show light and not darkness. So I think he's not in particular a person that is in a dystopian world. As the curator also mentioned, he is quite confident in that environment, in this dark environment that he creates. And it's not really that he believes in a dystopian world. Correct me if I'm wrong, but that's my impression I had.
Yeah, absolutely right, yeah. He didn't like to go out, for example. He didn't like to have too much light. When he was younger, yes, he did. I mean, you have seen where he grew up, where he, a long time of his childhood up in the mountains. Well, yeah, there you had a lot of light, but this was a sort of transformation he made during his life. So perhaps it's related with what you said earlier. He changed. He became darker in a matter, but not darker as a person. I mean, he was always very. He had a lot of humor. He was friendly, kind, but he didn't like the daylight anymore. So when he get out, it was too bright. So that's what I kept with the camera, or what I hope to keep with the camera. It was too bright. It was too frightening. Light was frightening, and I think it's fascinating when Andreas, the curator in Linz, says, where it is very dark, you can see the light. I mean, where the light is rare, it is more precious. I think I saw that in his paintings.
Yeah, that would also add to the short film. I don't know how many of you have joined the short film program, so maybe I don't talk too long about that. This was actually the idea of the director Freddie Moore to create this dystopian world. So it was not particular Giger that was like key for this scene. So I think as well there you find evidence that he was just happy in working in such an environment and create such a world, because he felt obviously they're quite confident.